NDTV Profit.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Nasdaq Live. Over the next 30 minutes, we bring you all the top global business stories. Unfortunately, this week-ending show does not come with good news. Markets around the world are suffering. And our first headline is about Wall Street, which also sees a difficult day today. In fact, Wall Street's decline is the worst in several months, and stocks have dropped and continue to drop, sending the Standard & Poor's 500 index into its biggest weekly drop since November. Equities suffer, but commodities like gold sure are gaining. Gold reaches record highs, topping over $1,000 per ounce. These difficult times, there's also a season of scams, the latest one involving Texas billionaire Alan Stanford, who had been lost but now is found, and charges are raised against him by the FBI on behalf of the SEC. Let's start the show as we always do with a check on Wall Street. Let's see how those major three indices are trading on the other side of the world. And again, it seems to be a difficult day for Wall Street. Nasdaq is down 0.7%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average 30 commonly tracked stocks are down 1.8%. And the Standard & Poor's 500 index is down a whopping 1.86%. So the bleeding continues in the United States. And the show is called Nasdaq Live because we get a chance to talk to our guests live all the way from the Nasdaq Stock Exchange. Joining us today is Mr. David Weiss, who is the Chief Economist of Standard & Poor's. Mr. Weiss, thank you for joining us on the show. Indeed, we've been following with bated breath the huge stimulus plan that has been introduced in the United States. We can't even comprehend these figures. $1.5 trillion promised by the government between the stimulus plan and the financial recovery plan to try and spur this economy. So you've testified before the Congress. You must know the details of this plan pretty well. We're excited to get your views on this plan and whether you think it will work in reviving the economy.
Well, I think it'll work in the sense that the economy is going to start to recover late this year, but it's not going to create a lot of life. What it'll do is prevent things from getting worse, and it should get at least a mild recovery going by year end.
Mr. Weiss, let's break down some of the sectoral news that's been coming in. Of course, the financial services industry and two major institutions there, Citibank and Bank of America. Now, it seems like these banks will need more funds in addition to the multi-billion dollars that have been poured into these institutions. The big question to you is the financial services sector right now in the United States a bottomless pit? Will it continue to require bailout money from the government, or is this a temporary fix that will hopefully get things back on track?
Well, we're hoping it's not bottomless, but I don't think we've hit the bottom yet. It's going to take more money than we've put in it so far. We've got another $350 billion of TARP money that's going to be shoved at it. Most of the institutions do seem to be getting more stable. Citicorp remains a problem. Bank of America looked like it was getting stable before the acquisition of Merrill Lynch, but that set them back again.
What are your views on why these large institutions have suffered a bit more than perhaps some of the other institutions? Citibank and Bank of America, household names in the United States for so long, but seriously suffering huge losses this year.
Part of the problem is that they were much more dependent on wholesale funding. They weren't as dominated by deposits. Therefore, their source of funding wasn't quite as stable and became very expensive when banks started to refuse to lend to each other. Also, they've done a lot of acquisition, particularly the Bank of America acquisition of Merrill Lynch, which, well, was a distressed acquisition when they did it, and it's turned out to be more distressed than they thought. And then on top of that, these were big players in the securitization markets, and those markets have just locked up.
Indeed, the rumors going on that Bank of America, indeed one of the biggest banks in the United States, might be nationalized. Your thoughts on these rumors?
Well, I hope that doesn't happen, certainly. I think both Citicorp and Bank of America, there have been rumors about it. That's why the stocks of the financial institutions are way down. I don't think it's a good idea. It's a last resort measure, but it would be a last resort if necessary.
Indeed, the government is clamping down and actually doing all it can on the fiscal and monetary front to try and revive the economy. What's also coming out are some interesting rules that the United States hasn't seen before in terms of limiting executive compensation, limiting the incentives that really are the cornerstones of the American economy. Your thoughts on limiting pay for the top executives of troubled banks?
I don't think it's a big problem. Frankly, the idea is that you should limit their pay until they pay the money back to the federal government. If the federal government's supporting them, if they're basically being run as a part of the government, why should they get paid more than a civil servant?
Indeed. One other interesting rule that has been coming out is a limit on the H-1B visas for international workers. And of course, this does not allow companies in most trouble to recruit the people that they might feel might be better qualified than their American counterparts. What is your viewpoint on, again, this controversial legislation that is coming out that troubled banks cannot hire foreign workers going forward?
Well, the problem is protectionist measures are going to come to the fore because it's always popular with Congress. They're trying to protect their workers. When you're seeing the unemployment rate go up, well, you want to preserve the jobs for your voters. And Congress is going to act that way. And I think we're also seeing similar problems in some of the rules that have been passed in Europe.
Indeed, these times we're seeing some new situations and equities suffering significantly. Of course, the price of certain commodities, including gold, have really shot up. Gold is at about $1,000 per ounce. Do you feel this is a realistic price for the commodity, or is it overvalued right now?
Well, I think it's overvalued, but who knows? Gold does not trade on the basis of any fundamentals. It trades on fear of inflation, fear of unrest, and just fear that there's no other asset to get into.
Indeed, when equities are so far down, other items such as bonds do really well. Indeed, we've been following the bond market in India, but your thoughts on how the bond market has fared in the United States and the prospects for it going ahead?
Well, the Treasury market, of course, is seeing yields that are near historic lows, about 2.75% on 10-year Treasuries. We are seeing some calming down of corporate markets. The corporate bond spreads have narrowed down. They're still running wide. Investment-grade bonds are trading at about 4.5 percentage points above U.S. Treasuries, but that still leaves them down around 7%, which is a pretty low interest rate for corporations to pay.
Okay, so while we follow the United States market, of course, we're interested in a global view, and we don't get that much information on a daily basis of other markets in the Americas. What are your thoughts on how the Canadian economy and the Central American economy has been doing also over the past few months in these troubled times?
Both Latin America and Canada are moving into recession now. They were held up for a while because commodity prices were very strong, and that helped them through the early part of the recession. But now commodity prices are going back down. Most of these states, almost all of these states are major commodity exporters, and that's hurting their revenues and causing recessions.
So what is your view on the Indian markets? Of course, our growth has also slowed down significantly, and we're looking at growth rates about 6 to 7%. But do you still feel India is vibrant and a good investment destination?
Well, I think India is going to have problems for the next year or two, like everybody else is having. But it is probably the country that is most insulated, at least to the major economies, from the world problems. The banking system is essentially not a big player in the world markets. It doesn't have the big export loss problem that China has. I think India right now is probably as well positioned as anybody to get through this.
So what are your thoughts on the big Satyam scandal that has come out from India? This was a big case of the biggest case of a corporate fraud in Indian history. And of course, a number of new legislative measures have been taken. Do you feel that this has been a positive move that will ensure that more investor activism comes in and such scams won't happen in the future?
Well, you can never ensure that such scams won't happen in the future. We found that in the U.S. They seem to happen pretty regularly. No matter how good the rules are, people find ways to hide what they're doing, to get around them. They will again next time. I think what needs to be tightened up is auditing rules. Transparency needs to be improved, and I think measures that do that, as is happening in India, are good for the markets in the long run.
That's exactly what is happening. Auditing rules are getting tightened, and a number of measures and a number of regulators are getting a lot more serious on looking at the books and the activities of corporates. Mr. David Weiss, it's a pleasure to chat with you today. Thank you very much for joining us here on NDTV Profit. Okay, and let's continue to get perspectives from Others in the United States of America. Joining us right now over the phone is Mr. Scott Noble, who's an investment advisor with Samex Capital Partners. Mr. Noble, thank you for joining us here on the show. We've been following a number of the sectors in the United States fairly closely with so much action going on. We've talked a little bit about the financial services sector. Can you share some thoughts with us of what's going on with the automobile sector there and the big three auto car makers looking for another bailout?
Yes, looks like between GM and Chrysler, they're looking for another $90 billion from the government. Unfortunately, it's just hard to see from our perspective how they're not going to end up filing bankruptcy anyways. It's just the common equity, even if they work out a deal without bankruptcy, will be diluted about 15 times that we can estimate. So the common equity that's left is not going to be worth very much. So between whether they go to bankruptcy or not, the common shareholders are pretty much wiped out. After that, it's kind of academic. I mean, they'll still operate as companies, but the shareholder, holding GM stock will be pretty much wiped out.
Well, it seems like many classic U.S. industries that have served their customers for so long are definitely seeing the toughest times ever. So what would you say that are some of the new sunshine sectors in the United States, sectors that we should watch out for and consider for investment?
Well, certainly we've been very defensive, very, very defensive, and very heavily in cash. There's still some companies out there that trade, although we don't give individual company recommendations, but there's some with a very strong balance sheet that are trading at or just less than actual net cash value. Just do some stock screens on those, and you can find those. Sectors that we like are going forward are going to be precious metals, and if you're an aggressive investor, you might want to start looking at commodities again. So we looked at oil has held the mid-30s, and over the long term, that's probably a fairly safe area if you have to put money at play right now.
Indeed. So if you take a look at actually the sectoral spending of the stimulus plan that is unveiled by Barack Obama, there's interesting allocations between the $787 billion, there's $50 billion put in on transportation, a similar amount put in on education, and a lot less put into a few other sectors. Would you say that some of the government spending might be a way to ascertain which sectors might receive more growth or are worth looking at more than others?
Maybe. We're not big fans of the government's stimulus plan as it is, but it's passed, and so we have to live with that. What we think we'll find is the spending may only slow down some of the negative growth that we're experiencing now. So overall, we're just going to have to work our way through this economy on our own. The government intervention will probably slow us down as far as how far down it'll go. But right now, we're not ready to turn the corner back to the positive and back to growth in most sectors. So, unfortunately, they're spending the money. It will help to a certain degree, but probably not satisfy equity investors in the short term.
Mr. Noble, just last question for you. Of course, a new housing plan revealed by the president just a couple of days ago, and this seems to be a little bit of a public-private partnership. The government will subsidize banks that themselves lower their rates for customers. What are your thoughts on the new housing plan, given that it's so far-reaching and is impacted to have such a large impact?
Well, there's a growing contingent of market participants who don't like the housing plan, just for the standpoint that oftentimes the people that have their loans reworked still default anyways, and the only way to really clean out the inventory is let the prices fall to the point where demand picks up again on its own. Helping people stay in their homes, while very laudable, and no one wants to see anybody lose their home, if that person is still going to turn around and take that bailout money and then turn around and lose the home again anyways, we again just stretch the problem out for a longer period. So it'll have some impact. Some people will be able to take advantage of it, but probably far less than we really think will help in the long term again. So it's just going to take demand to start building back up again as the prices drop, and that will happen on its own. So we just have to be very patient.
Mr. Scott Noble, thank you very much for joining us on our show, Nasdaq Live. Indeed, some impact, of course, expected from a number of these packages being introduced. But the question is the cost-benefit analysis worth it? We'll be following the markets, and we come back with more action on the other side after the short break.
Business on Course celebrates 100 episodes.
Mr. Munjal, welcome to Business on Course.
Whosoever said banking was challenging hasn't played golf.
See that? It's a good shot.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Top CEOs play a round of golf with Shelly Chopra.
And I think it's overstated.
Where the professionals tee off. And you get lessons in business and golf.
Take a few deep breaths and make a few swings and just to loosen again your golfing muscles. Really just focus on your first shot.
Swinging times for 100 episodes, bringing you the best in golf.
Developing the industry in a healthy manner.
With the award-winning anchor, Shelly Chopra. Business on Course celebrates 100 episodes.
Nasdaq Live brought to you by MVL, because life's all about being happy, developing real estate across India. All new city, enjoy your challenges. And Cadbury Bonville Fine Dark Chocolate. You don't buy a Bonville, you earn it.
If you've been hit, fine, just get up, move on to the next one.
What's more rewarding to me is when I do come up with ideas.
I've learnt a lot in the first 6 years and I know exactly what needs to be done.
The story of Mahindra is the story of India.
The overachievers all have a bit of daring, plenty of drive, and a real commitment to improving the quality of life around them.
Meet the Unstoppable Indians with Manvi Dhillon. Tuesday night at 8:30, only on NDTV Profit. The Unstoppable Indians, presented by Apollo Tyres Limited. Unstoppable.
Guys. आपको लगता है रिटायर होने पे जिंदगी ऐसी ही होगी? पर ऐसा ना हुआ तो बिरला सन लाइफ इंश्योरेंस के रिटायरमेंट सॉल्यूशंस, ताकि महंगाई चाहे बढ़ती रहे, आप कल भी जिए आज की तरह। तेरी मिसेस परेरा।
The all-new Ford Icon DuraTalk Diesel. Sensible भी, crazy भी।
ये ले तेरा फोन।
लेकिन बेटा इतनी सबकी क्या जरूरत
माँ,
थी?
शगुन के नाम।
और शगुन के लिए?
मैंने अपने लिए कुछ लिया है, सुखी जिंदगी का इंश्योरेंस, शगुन के नाम।
अपनों की खुशी के लिए शगुन के नाम से आप क्या नहीं करते? क्यों ना अगले प्रमोशन पर उनकी सुखी जिंदगी भी इंश्योर करें। फ्यूचर जनरली इंश्योरेंस, एक शगुन जिंदगी के नाम।
सिर्फ एक्स्ट्रा प्रीमियम पेट्रोल में है फ्रिक्शन बस्टर, जो दे ज्यादा माइलेज, बेहतर पिकअप और जबरदस्त परफॉर्मेंस। स्विच टू एक्स्ट्रा प्रीमियम ओनली फ्रॉम इंडियन ऑयल।
Ministry of Civil Aviation, the wings of progress.
इस लड़के को तो मैं स्कॉलरशिप विकी, इस लड़के को तो मैं
HDFC Bank Meritus Scholarships 2009, India's premier scholarship program. We understand how much your child's success means to you. HDFC Bank, empowering education.
Ability is what you are capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do, and attitude determines how well you do it.
It's a magazine which is unconventional today because it continues to remain very conventional.
It's been successful because we celebrate the power of the individual always.
Watch as Reader's Digest recognizes the best efforts of corporates in social responsibility and community development in the Reader's Digest Pegasus CSR Awards 2008. Sunday evening at 7:30 on NDTV Profit.
back. You're watching Nasdaq Live, and now let's round out our view of the markets in the United States with a check on how the rest of the world is doing. Let's start first with Asia and see how those markets have done today in trading. Remember, we said that globally equities were down, and we'll track some of the major indices coming out of Asia. On your screen right here, Hang Seng from Hong Kong finished the day down 2.5%. The Kospi in Korea was also down a whopping 3.7%. In Japan, things were no different. A lot of bleeding there. The FTSE Straits in Singapore down 2+%. KLSE in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, actually down only 1.1%, and the Taiwanese exchange also was down a little over 2%. So no reprieve and no weekend cheer coming in the markets in Asia. And actually the situation is even worse in Europe. CAC 40 stocks tracked in France down 4.25%. The DAX in Germany down almost 5%, and the FTSE 100 tracked in the United Kingdom saw also a very difficult day, down 3.22%. And this action was no different here in the Indian markets, where the major indices suffered 2% plus losses for the day. Banking lost out, IT lost out, and so did a number of other sectors. Namrata Brar breaks down the action today on Dalal Street. Here she is.
Hi, today all global markets were singing the Dow tune, or rather croaking the Dow tune, with the breach of 7,500 on the Dow, which is a crucial support scene, and we were no different. 2% off for both the indices. On the Nifty, 2720 as a close at supporting close rather has been broken. Remember, Asian markets were also the similar story, so no big change coming on that count. But now everyone, including armchair investors, are saying that this market could well head to October lows, which are still about 15 to 20% away from the Nifty and Sensex. Sectorally speaking, blackout everywhere, so everything followed a similar story, 2 to in some cases 4% off. I just want to refer to some news flow. There was earnings impact on ABB and Areva. ABB in particular stock shot up when those numbers announced. They were above street estimates, though the power system growth is slow. The order inflows has taken a hit, but the management seems quite confident about capex reserves and is saying that they are not seeing any order cancellations from key clients. Spice and Educomp are always a trader's favorite, either on the upward bias or the downward bias. Today, of course, you can see it was off 12%. Educomp management also coming up with some clarifications on the ongoing investigations. Some of the heavyweights like ICICI Bank taking a sharp knock. We are expecting a rate cut, but don't know when that's coming. Arcom as well is under a special government audit for some of the subsidiary revenues as well. For the week, it's a bleak picture. I report again 8% off. You've got mid caps as well crumbling. So did small caps. The institutional activity also negative, about 1,500 crores sold by FIs as well as 900 crores sold by mutual funds. Hopefully when we come out of this long weekend, there will be some bit of global cheer to respond to.
Well, we hope that global cheer does come in, but for right now, equity is suffering, and with equity suffering, other forms of investment are going up. How about the commodity gold, which has reached record highs? In fact, it has doubled in price over the past couple of years, and the uncertainty in the market has driven gold prices to over $1,000 per just an ounce of that commodity. Domestic prices here in India have also touched record highs of over 15,800 rupees per just 10 grams. And the decoupling from the dollar and crude driving were driving this buying in gold. Gold sees the best days that it has while equities stumble and bubble. And amongst all this uncertainty, what could be some fuel to the fire? Well, how about more scams? Sir Alan Stanford has been involved in an $8 billion scam in the United States and then went missing for several days. Now he's been found and the FBI has levied charges against him. Don't forget, Alan Stanford is the man who put together multi-million-dollar cricket tournaments. Now we know where some of that money was coming from. Here's our report.
Being on the run is quite a difficult job, as Sir Alan Stanford just found out. After being accused of a multi-billion-dollar fraud, the Texan millionaire has been finally tracked down by the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Richmond in the US. Stanford is accused of having lured investors with promises of improbable and unsubstantiated high returns on certificates of deposits and other investments. But one man, James Stanford, the father of Alan Stanford, certainly believes that all the accusations are wrong. The 81-year-old, who is listed as Chairman Emeritus and a Director for Stanford Financial Group, pleaded guilty on behalf of his son.
And I don't believe the accusations that the SEC has made against my son, Jim Davis, and the Laura Prendergast Holt. The three people I don't believe them at all. I think that I can't believe that they would be involved in an illegal scam to something to milk investors.
It has been a season of scams globally. After Bernie Madoff in the US and Satyam in India, now it is the turn of the Texan billionaire Alan Stanford. One only hopes that all the guilty are brought to book sooner rather than later. Bureau Report, NDTV Profit.
So no more multi-million-dollar winner-take-all Stanford one-day cricket matches coming up for sure. Folks, it's been a difficult time for markets in India and the US. Both India and US saw their worst weekly declines in over 3 months. This weekend is much needed for the markets. We wish you a good one and thank you for joining us on Nasdaq Live.
Well, Monica, I'm ready to put up my feet and retire, and you better tell me how to get there very, very quickly.
One option is work for 3 years, take a break for 3 months. Enjoy, work for 3 years, take a break for 3 months. I do that all the time.
All right.
The other thing is, of course, consistently work for 40 years, 50 years, build a corpus, and then chill.
All right, 30 minutes to wealth. Watch to find out how do you get there. Get towards your retirement with a comfortable retirement fund.
Witness as we recognize and reward the top funds of the year. ICRA Mutual Fund Awards 2009. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on NDTV Profit. ICRA Mutual Fund Awards 2009 presented by ICRA. Powered by ICRA Online. Media partner NDTV Profit.
Okay, listen. ये इंश्योरेंस के पेपर्स पड़े हैं, प्लीज साइन कर दो।
मेरे बिना जी पाओगी तुम?
नहीं।
तो फिर मेरे जाने के बाद ये सब पैसे का क्या फायदा?
साइन करोगे ना तो इस जीनियस की एजुकेशन के लिए गारंटी हो जाएगी, तुम्हारी रिटायरमेंट के लिए गारंटी हो जाएगी। सब गारंटी मतलब नो टेंशन, और टेंशन के बिना आदमी ज्यादा जीता है ना।
यानी कि लंबी उम्र तक झेलना पड़ेगा तुम्हें। साइन कर दूं?
जीते रहो।
ICICI Prudential Life Insurance. जीते रहो। SMS Life to 57827.
हो गया परमानेंट हो गया
परमानेंट हो गया। अरे पप्पा तुम भी? सबको पता है, सोना हो या सिंटेक्स भाया, परमानेंट तो होगा ही।
सिंटेक्स वाटर टैंक्स
परमानेंट हो गया।
स्ट्रॉन्ग कॉफी? आपको लगता है रिटायर होने पे जिंदगी ऐसी ही होगी? क्यों ना? पर ऐसा ना हुआ तो बिरला सन लाइफ इंश्योरेंस के रिटायरमेंट सॉल्यूशंस, ताकि महंगाई चाहे बढ़ती रहे, आप कल भी जिए आज की तरह।
एक और कॉफी?
We might say this car is not for presidents, it's for visionaries. We might say this car brings technology to virtuosity. We might say being ahead is the new being above. But why should we say anything?
आइसक्रीम खाएगी?
आइसक्रीम? ये है डबल आनंद। पहला आनंद पॉलिसी टर्म के अंत पर मैच्योरिटी क्लेम का पूरा भुगतान, और दूसरा आपके अपनों के लिए लाइफ कवर की पूरी रकम बिना किसी प्रीमियम के। LIC जीवन आनंद, आनंद ही आनंद।
Business is war.
Why not? Why ever not?
Now, one show takes you to the front line.
60 minutes of views, opinions, debate.
Inflation.
We must tighten policy because we are overheating.
The global oil crisis.
Governments have to now set out how will they price carbon.
Bollywood.
This actor will be paid 25 crore. That actor will fetch 40 crore.
Cricket.
Indian cricket is a financial success at the moment.
The fight for money, power and control.
Give us a bad government is bad enough.
Don't take us to be fools.
Big Business Battles with Shivnath Thukral, Best Business News Presenter at the News Television Awards.
India Inc. and Indian business houses come and give their opinions for real.
Sunday at 9 p.m. on NDTV Profit. Big Business Battle brought to you by Yes Bank. Say yes to growth. Whatever your trip, we have a bag for you. VIP. Happy journey. And new Fiat Linea. Admiration guaranteed. Nasdaq Live brought to you by MVL, because life's all about being happy. Developing real estate across India. All new city. Enjoy your challenges. And Cadbury Bonville Fine Dark Chocolate. You don't buy a Bonville, you earn it.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV Profit.